what are the protocols within Google? So let's review the protocols. Google is an amazing company, but what makes it even better? We have to, in order for it to be a diamond, how can it become a diamond? Well, does Google have a brand, which is a symbol? I have it right here. Does Google have a brand? It's a symbol for a name for many of its products that creates a psychological effect, meaning that if you think of phone, you think of iPhone. When you say search with Google, well, I mean, there you have it on the answer. What happens when you go search it? Where do people go when they also think like on video? When you want to look, search it on a video. People don't say search it on a video. People say search on YouTube, search on Google. You see, definitely a branding effect. They can market effectively, create marketing through just their brand without any means of crazy innovation in their products. Definitely a case. Every advertisement I've seen on Google has been always these different products that have been Google, like they emphasize so much on the Google, like Google Fiber, read that all the time, Google Pixel, right? But emphasizes the emphasis on the brand on the Google and the use in the effectiveness of the Google products of search, and where that's the branding effect. Barrier of entry. So do they have a language and a culture? Yeah, they definitely do. Many people using the type of search, the way how they use search, remember that's the system that they have. That's the system. The system is the language and the culture and the way of thinking. And where Google makes the new Android, people are gonna. That's why they made the Android. Go to its. Now that's not a. It definitely has a culture. People will stay there. People can't come in and steal their customers easily because of how heavily entrenched and they like the search results. It's not a huge dominance. I would say it's not a huge dominance compared to its brand. I would say that most of all the brand with that, and also the system, though it is the system of the quality of their products in combination. You do have it as a language and a culture, and where new type of search, new type of way of YouTube, people look at it as foreign and they wouldn't accept it as much into what they have in Google because it's so widely used. Now, it wouldn't be, I would say it wouldn't be impossible, but it would be hard. So this barrier of entry is still strong. This is not incredibly strong, but still strong because they have dominance. High switching cost. Yeah, because that's what I said, that people can go into the search. It's the only search. It's where everyone is. Everyone's there, right? So it doesn't even matter whether Google raises their prices for their advertisers by 20 to 30%. They would still make more money because that's where everyone is. People are not going to switch just because. People are not going to switch off from the products and services. So by that nature, they can definitely do a high switching cost, and people will still have to market on Google because they know everyone is there, and they're still making money out of that. So that'll make Google more. Of course, raising it extremely high is not because it would bring maybe the advertisers to advertise directly towards, but still, it's just, you can't, because even if they went to another platform for software, for an application, there's just too little people there, and they'll make probably less money over there because there's less amount of conversions and traffic. There's less traffic, and where they can convert, and overall to make more money than what it is on Google incomplete in every client. That wouldn't affect it because everyone's going there. So it's they definitely have a high switching cost. They don't have a non-mythical approach because that's what Microsoft Edge is doing, but they don't have it. They have an approach, but they're unsuccessful to copy them, right? They're unsuccessful. Networking effect. When someone is almost describing you 20% of the product, and you already know exactly what it is. Yeah. Someone tells you what's the search called and where there's these different culture banners, and what I see when I try to search for something. Oh, you're referring to Google. That's where Google's revolving into the networking effect, right? And the person will likely, I don't know how, but if someone doesn't know Google and you talk to them everything about Google, they're going to be obsessed with Google. They're going to immediately try to find it out, because Google in the search, the thing that I like is that it's free. The search engine is free. So that's just an incentive, of course. That's the management part, and it has to be free. But even then, though, they would be highly fascinated because there's no one else as effective as to creating a search result as them, and where people would definitely be interested. It's not networking effect. Low capex. Yeah, they don't have high capex because they don't. The only reason why their capex went up this year was because of macroeconomics, and their acquisitions went up. But it's not to maintain their operations. That was actually to improve a lot more better, which is normal. I mean, you're going to use your capital to buy more things, which is going to increase your capital expenditures. I mean, it's just basic common sense, but it's not high capex. It's not comprising like 50% of their revenue per se, or their net income. So in fact, you could look at here, when they invested that capex, it just comprised about 26%. I think that's referring to this. How much is this compared to their cash flow from operations? But let's say their free cash flow. Not even the free cash flow. It's just, yeah, it's about 26%. That's very low to maintain. That's very low for sure. It's just 34. It would be a problem if this was like 60 or 70%. And it'd be a problem if the capital expenditures were like that for 8 years, like 50 to 60 to 70%, because it requires them to heavily invest back to it. But again, that heavily invest back would automatically, yeah, that would be the capital expenditure. So outside of the operations, great management. Yeah, because they are providing the search to these other platforms. They're branching out to different areas with using the AI and getting to different places. Yeah, it's not amazing stellar management, but it's good management. They don't have bad management. Definitely not. They have good management. A product or service ecosystem is when a company has a stretch across multiple devices, relative important connection with each other, that they inevitably, from powerful products, they can also do it about this. It creates the language and culture, yeah, and built an affinity with just the entire company, so loyal that they just stick with them. Yeah, but because of what they're doing in terms of search, yeah, people will still stick with it. People will definitely stick with it for sure. If they're looking for search, they will stick with it in an effective search, but not to the whole amount because devices are already having it in the internet. So it's not like it's the only place that you have. So it's about, yeah, as an ecosystem in which it can't be impenetrable for the niche, but not a whole important, like a bunch of people, right? Because it's Android's user. So I said they're not going to switch. Monopoly, not as much actually. They don't have as much monopoly. No, they don't. Okay, so we've tested it, and it's still, I'm still going to invest in the company, but this just, let's say, shows the amounts of how much and how long it can stand. So from this explanation, I would say from this company, if it had all the protocols on stellar quality on each protocols multiple times, this would be a company that I would invest either 40 to 50 years that it can last. All right, so we've looked at all the characteristics. So I'm going to say that for my analysis, I'm projecting Google to them from the protocols and from this statement. So it's already a solid company. We've already checked that. We can now get the intrinsic value. So I'll do that on Excel. But you see how I knew it can last already immediately from the protocols and the business. From the business, I was going to say 40 years. But from the protocol, I would say more than 30 years. And that's very conservative for more than 30 years. So let's do the intrinsic value. Google, we look at over here, you can see all this. So the most consistent measure is actually its operating cash flow, which I'll use 91.5 billion. So that would be 91.5, yeah, because it's in millions. This would be 91 billion. Total debt is in its balance sheet. Just make sure it's on annual. Total cash is 113.76. 113.76. So 113 billion. 76. And then in millions in the debt, the total debt, which is the short-term debt added by the long-term debt, that's nothing. 2.78, that's literally nothing compared to this. Super low debt. So you see how strong, this is why I like technology companies and Plus as leverage, because it requires such little expenses in terms of what you're doing. If AI, of course, that's expenses, but in this, such a predictable business. 2.78, that gives them means that they can easily be coining money. This is to me a predictable company, a large growth company, and not a deep value company, because it's not there yet. Just not yet, not that much. I would say it's just a predictable and a large growth company. So what about its growth rate? We'll look at that. So if we look at from the different sources, we go on Finvis, and I would say just from what I've seen, how much is it making? 91 billion, and they're going into this segment. Well, let's see from what they did before, which was developing into the search, and they developed from YouTube. They got more money out of that. Let me go back to Market Watch. Let's go on Google financials, and we'll look at cash flow. From the past, 13%. This increased, but that was because of macro. Okay, so from this, I would say in the future, it would be growing 25% because of what they're doing. 25%, including the products and what it's selling, its dominance, that more people are going to use digital. On top of that, with AI and cloud, yeah, 25% is a pretty conservative measure, yeah, towards its future. And how they're moving across compatibility with their existing products. People are going to still search and more, and where I definitely see a 25% increase along with their innovation. Mixed with that, about 25%. I would say the most conservative, about 15%. Yeah, about 15%. But I'm going to stick with 25% because Google's already an extremely strong company. Simply Wall Street. So that's the thing that I want you to do in their head. Like, you can already see from that and what they're doing currently and how it's going to grow and how it's more valuable than the rest. More people will be coming into the product along with what they're going to do innovative with this. You can get a measure of whether, if the company's extremely, extremely strong, you can then get to the normal range. If it's strong but not extremely, if it's extremely strong but not extremely, extremely, then you can get the most conservative, which what I said was 15%, but I will stick to 25%. Google. Future growth. 14. Okay. They're more conservative than I am. And I can understand that because I understand the business more than they do. So, see, I do my deep research and these providers can't, but I like to not just think about it on my opinion based on that. So what I will do is this. I said 25%, so I'll stick to it to 25%. That's me. These are from the other sources that they give a lower. So these guys said that, and then finally we can get it from Google Focus, which would be here without future 3 to 5 years without NRA, 15%. Okay, so 15% added by 17%. This is a little more optimistic. Alphabet's 14. I mean, Zacks is 14. Over here's 14 as well. Okay, so let's divide this by 5, because in total it's about 5. There you have it. The average here is about 17%. All right, so we'll do 17%. Keep that normal, the GDP rate. Here you have it. There you go. Oh, wait, no, this is for 20 years. Ah, damn it, guys. This is for 20 years. Okay, so here we go. Let's look at Google. And I'm just going to basically copy and paste all this. Okay, here you have it. Google right now is worth about $124, which basically means if we grab the market cap, if we wanted to add the market cap, which I will, I can add it here. I can put it like this. This times this. Look, that's about, if you read that number there, actually, no, that's actually the real number, because that's this, I forget that this number is factored by the billions. So this would be about $1.5 trillion. The company's selling at $1.5 trillion. You know what it's worth? It's worth about $9.3 trillion. That means you're getting an 83% discount. You can make 495%. Google's heavily undervalued right now in terms of my valuation for 30 years. Definitely undervalued. Okay, so look what happened here. We put the same GDP and the same GDP over here. So what it will last. Put the shares amounts, same data, now for just 30 years. What this shows is that in 30 years, without inflation, Google will produce in total $18 trillion. But if you adjust that to inflation, it would be $9.3 trillion. So what that technically means is that if you grab that valuation per share price, so let me change this to that, because it's actually, if you change this to each share, what that's worth, each share should be worth $732. Minus that by debt, plus that by cash. This is the net final valuation of what each per share should be worth, about $741. How much is each share worth right now? $124. That means we're buying at a discount of 83%. We're buying a company that's worth $9.4 trillion. $9.4 trillion when it's selling at 1.5. We're buying something worth we're buying at 83% less of what it's worth. That means we're to make 495%. We're guaranteed. We're guaranteed to make it in 2 years, 3 years, despite the stock price. The stock price is whatever it wants to move in the short term. But in the long term, this is where the business is actually worth. Overall. Let me just put that like that. Overall. So, Google is so undervalued. I mean, and also, because we can be on the same page. Why is it 400? Because I know people are going to keep, because they can't understand this. Look, remember. How much would it take $124 to get to 741? Well, that's for sure 4 times. More than 4 times. There you have it. We're buying something worth at a discount from 741 to 124, 83% less. But for 124 to get to 741, that means that needs to make almost 500%. That means if we buy at this price, we'll be guaranteed to make 500%. I don't know, next year, 2 years, but for sure 3 to 5 years. And that's just the guaranteed worth, right? Now, let's look at the stock then. So you can see where it's at. Also, let me save this. I actually want to save this. Yeah. Where is it at right now? Jesus. Wow. That's... Look, it's like beyond the site. It's like beyond the site. Also, technically, because if the stock didn't split, right? If there wasn't a stock split back in July, this would actually be about, it's simple. This multiplied by 20 shares. Why? Because anyone who had 1 share before the stock split now has 20 shares. So if there wasn't the 20 and you just had the 1, that means we have to multiply this amount by 20. That's the worth. Without the stock split, the stock would be worth, the company would be worth $14,800 per share. Right, but with the stock split, each share is worth $741. and we're buying it at 124. In another way of speaking, we're buying something if there wasn't a stock split $2,000 when it's actually worth $14,000. See the huge gain there? It's a huge gain. So let's look at the company. Look, this is what people don't understand. People are scared that, oh, okay, the stock's going up. They're afraid to go down. I don't even care if it goes down like this again. I don't. In fact, I'd be perfectly fine, and I actually want that. Why? Because the more the stock goes down, the more money I'm going to make. I mean, can you imagine if you bought here when this business is worth about $600 to $700? You'd be, well, look, well, before maybe their statements were different, but still, 741, $95 divided by 741. It's 87% undervalued. How much would it take 95 to get to 741? A lot. It would take 788%. This would be a 788% gain. Guaranteed gain. Because that's what the company's actually worth. It's what it's going to produce in 30 years. And that's a very conservative amount for 30 years. I said it was going to be 40, but because of the dominance and strength, I would say that the very minimum is now 30. And still, we're buying at a huge discount. So there you have it. That's up to your choice, whether you want to buy it, but that's for Google. But you saw how sure I was in Google compared to Microsoft because I actually understand it. I don't even care about my emotion, my bias, either one. I equally like Microsoft compared to Google. But in terms of understanding the business and how it makes money, I understand, I would say 6 times more Google compared to Microsoft. I know 100 times more certainty that I will make money in the future than what I know in Microsoft because of what I understand with. And that's why I put it for 30 years. And that's why I would invest into it. So that's it for now for this. The CPI, which I'll explain in another video because this was a long one, but I just wanted to show you all the process of how to understand an investment. I understood its competition automatically. I didn't have to search for it. I already knew its competition immediately. And it's a pretty dominant, basic common sense on what it's doing if anyone else is doing it. The closest of the one that's doing it is the search engine, which is Bing. That's Microsoft, but it's not even remotely close. That's their biggest competition in terms of even Google Cloud too, and Google services like Documents, which would be Microsoft Word or Excel compared to Google Sheets. It still does not effectively do as well compared to Google Sheets when it comes to data searching on the web as much as Google does it. And with ads, which it makes 90% of the money on its ads, Microsoft doesn't even make that, doesn't even primarily focus on the ads. They focus primarily on the data infrastructure and the infrastructure. And Google makes a lot of its money from the ads, from the search ad of itself. And they're dominant on the search because that's where everyone's going. And the threats of another thing to come in from the search to remove it is very, very low. I would say the possible there would be Microsoft. But even then, Microsoft is so far away from that because they don't have the experience, neither the data formats nor the applications to make search better because they don't have YouTube. They don't have all these other platforms that Google has. That's why Google will stay dominant for this amount of time. All right. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.